Let's talk books. Now, as you can tell, I've got a lot of them. So in this video, I'm going to go through the 5 books that have had the biggest impact on my life so far. Now, this isn't going to be a fancy video. There's not no transitions or big graphics. So if you're a dopamine-rinsed monkey, this video is not going to be for you. Get off. And if you are watching this video to seek new knowledge, then trust me, you're in for a good one because these books have truly changed the game for me. Now, the one thing that was interesting before coming on this video when I was looking at these books is I didn't like I chose what I was not expecting to choose. So I let my intuition just guide me through what books I was most drawn towards. And typically speaking, a guy like me, you're probably expecting, the 48 Laws of Power, some Jordan B. Peterson's, and just typical run of the mill stuff, right? Basic self help stuff. When I actually just sort of like quieted my mind and just sort of thought about what actually had a big impact on me, I actually surprised myself. But I'm going to start off with two fairly standard ones, pretty much run it. Like, if you know me as a person and you've got access to me, you'll know that stoicism is a huge, huge part of my life. It's pretty much, I see it as a moral compass. So, like, how I navigate through situations, with me sort of raising my consciousness, encountering new situations, whenever I'm sort of in the shit, so to say, stoicism is basically what I would refer to as. So, the first one for me has to be how to think like a Roman emperor. Now, this is based on the philosophy of Marcus Aurelius. However, it doesn't just focus on Marcus Aurelius. I love this book because it focuses on so many different emperors and just those stoic teachers that have lived throughout the time when stoicism was coming about. And I don't know why I'm so drawn to this book, but I remember when I read this. So I went to Milan last year. I was in Italy, big part of my life, speak the language, eventually want to have some profit out there, maybe even move there. So Italy, and just reading a book like this, I was going to Lake Como. I was truly just in like the countryside, just pure tranquility or tranquility. I'm not too sure how to pronounce that. But yeah, this book was truly just a special moment reading it. And the reason why I like it is because of how well it dissects stuff. So the history of Stoicism, and the reason why it faced such scrutiny is because it was deemed at that time, and even to this time, it was deemed out of reach for your modern day man. And when something's deemed of out of reach, it becomes weaponized and demonized. So Seneca, for example, he was exiled. A lot of Stoic philosophers, Diogenes, he lived like a dog, like he hated people. He was, excluded from humanity, so to say. A lot of Stoic philosophers, like truly great teachers, they actually faced scrutiny because they was teaching something that wasn't obtainable. So it was almost perceived, I guess, in modern day times as being stuck up, perfectionist. Like it never actually got the best rep, which is interesting because Stoicism now forms such a large aspect of self improvement, and I think that it's something that should be taught in schools. Everything. Um, I loved sort of like there's certain passages of this. So like when I'm reading stuff, I don't just read a book and go through the pages. One thing that I can do, as you can see, is all of these pages, I actually fold the pages. So I go through the book. If something stands out, I'll either highlight it, or if you'll see in my next book, I use post-it notes. And then we're going to do another video as to how I read books, and I've literally created a second brain. It's crazy. So one of the things here is Epictetus basically says, if it's endurable, then endure it. Now, Epictetus actually started off as a slave, right? So he was a slave, he was in a house, he had a master just during the house slaves would go. And basically, his master at the time, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, I'm speaking from memory, but the gist of the situation is that Epictetus was a slave, and his master basically went to break his leg, and he was calm. And all he said in that situation was, "You are going to break my leg." And the master carried on. He said, "Again, you're going to break my leg." No signs of pain, no screaming, no nothing. He was just calm. He was just enduring it. And then his leg broke, and he just says, "I told you, you was going to break my leg." And the idea here is that if it is endurable, just endure it. And that sort of, for me, put into perspective where there's stuff that I'm going through, like, for example, waking up early. A lot of people, so my day starts at 3:30, 4ish, sometime around that time. And a lot of the times people sort of ask me, are you tired? How do you do it? Like, well, why do you do it? And, you know, even on the days that I do struggle with that, if it's endurable, just endure it. I'm not dying. I'm not putting myself into any danger. I can do it. So the best thing to do is just endure it. Even when I've gone through trials and tribulations to get to that next level of consciousness, if it is endurable, then endure it. Because bottom line, I've asked for this. I can't moan about having loads on my plate when the quest was to eat anyway, right? And I know that's a very typical quote to say, but the idea here is that you can learn so much just by getting through it. And there is a lot more in this book. Like, I would definitely recommend it. Again, I sort of digressed from my original point. This book is good because it takes stoicism can get quite complex at times, and it can get a little bit too fluffy, so to say. This is taken from a modern day guy, and he does a really, really good job of translating that into actual modern day information that allows you to understand the magnitude of, Stoicism, but how it's actually relevant in today's world. Now, the second book, Jesus, it's been a long day, alright? Chill with me. So, second one is Letters by Seneca. Now, this is one of the first proper Stoic books that I actually read, which is interesting. Most people go into Stoicism and they actually go down the route of meditations from Marcus Aurelius, which I only actually read for the first time last year. This one was truly amazing. One of my most favourite quotes from Seneca is, "We suffer more in imagination than we do in reality." Now, when I read books, I want to tell you this, and I hope it will help you if you are reading books, is you should never read a book and try to memorize everything. You're not reading to memorize the book. That makes no sense, because then you're going to be an unoriginal person. You need to be reading for that one or just a handful of things that you can actually take and apply to your life. I used to do all these things where I'd read a book and I'd try to remember everything. Whereas what I found to be most effective is you read the book and you just look for that one thing that just rings true on your mind. And what I just told you about that quote then is what I got from this book. Again, going back to how you actually read a book, you'll notice if we go through, notice how there's post-it notes. So I literally highlight it. This is not fun. This reading is work to me. I don't just treat this as a hobby. This is true studying and being immersed in the moment. And it's little stuff like here. Stoics are very well sufficient and contain all assets in their good character and nature. They cannot lose or be beaten, as there is nothing to initially take. So Stoics were renowned for being very happy with the basics of life, the simplicity of it all. And this is what put them in such a powerful position, because how can you take from a man that has nothing to begin with? You cannot, he's impenetrable. You cannot get to him. He cannot be harmed. He's just him. Stoicism is a really good way to practice emotional resilience and actually raise your emotional intelligence. You'll be surprised how many men have just got the emotional maturity of a toddler, and they navigate through life spitting their dummy out, having tantrums, and just generally any situation that happens that they do not like, they react instead of responding. These two Stoic books can literally turn you into a superhuman just by being in charge of your emotions, right? Now, the third one is a special one, and third one is very interesting because it's new for me and I'm still navigating from it. It's a really weird route, right? Because I have started with Stoicism, then went into New Age, then went into spirituality. Now we're into the esoteric, just understanding energy, the universe, Kybalion laws, all these types of stuff. And obviously from that, I learned a lot of esoteric teachings within Christianity. So one of the next book is going to be, plain and simple, the Bible. Now, this is very interesting. I haven't actually read this cover to cover. I physically cannot lie to you on that one. However, I do try to read a segment every day. And what we sort of got on my arm here is I've got loads of tattoos, and I've got a plan to go up onto my full arm where I've got Seneca, Marcus Aurelius that we've gone over, and some other little bits as well. On my inside of the arm is going to go another quote. So again, I'm never reading stuff for just to read it for reading's sake, right? I'm looking for that one thing that I can use to guide my life to where I want it to go. And the thing here is a verse from Luke, which is, "The kingdom of God is within you." So we are made in God's image, right? And what you need to understand from that is you can literally do and be anything. Now, the whole, I will say this in the most straightforward way. The same power that made Christ rise from the dead, can't get my words out, the same power that made Jesus Christ rise from the dead 3 days later is the same power that resides within you. So you cannot look me in the eyes, you cannot be watching this video and try to tell me that you cannot do anything short of pure perfection to truly unlock and perform at your potential. It makes no sense when you have such a power residing in you. And I know that sounds very, trying to be motivational and stuff, but it truly is that. We're made in his image, and, I use that as a way to navigate through my life, because I'm in a position where I'm truly operating at levels that, even statistically, a kid in care coming from Bradford, you're not meant to get to these levels. So I need to, align myself with this compass that I've created to actually start getting to these levels that I've created. So it's a new step for me, I will admit, but it's one that I'm enjoying a lot at the moment, and it's serving me very well every day. The next one, I actually read this in one day. So it's rare that I find books. I've read close to, I'd say 100 books, something like that. Maybe a little bit more. I don't even know the exact figure. And there's only ever been a couple of books where I physically can't put it down, and I just need to get through it in the day. It's one of them ones. And what we have here is The 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And I've recently, just today, finished the 5th agreement, which is pretty rubbish, to be honest. This one, however, is a game changer. And the beauty of this is how simple it is. I managed to read this in a day just because of how easy it is to read. So what it basically takes you through is 4 agreements, and these are like basically standards that you hold yourself to. So the first one, and I'm going to try to memorize them now, which would be pretty shocking if I can't. The first one is always do your best. So what this basically means here is when you're doing something, even if it's not potentially aligned with what you want to be doing, you have to give your best. You have to do what is, doable, and essentially control the controllables. You should never be doing anything, whether it be work, a conversation, and falling short of it. If you can do more, then absolutely do more. The second one, and I think it goes in order, so I've got this the wrong way around already, but the second one is you must keep your word, or you must be impeccable with your word. And what that basically means is whatever you say to yourself, whatever you're dreaming for yourself, you must stick to that. Now, most people never get to where they need to be because they can't even keep a word to themselves. They're constantly judging others, scrutinizing others, always falling into this victim mentality when it boils down to the fact that they can't keep their word. We're in February now, and I've seen, I even overheard a conversation when I was in the barbers this morning. I've seen stories on social media about saying that they're just going to carry on procrastinating in February. You will be surprised the modern generation, the most majority of people, cannot keep their word to themselves whatsoever. And yet they wonder why their quality of life is not what they want. You have to be impeccable with your word. The third one is never assume stuff. You'll be surprised. I've literally seen this on a day-to-day basis where people assume the worst case scenarios. I'm guilty of this myself, and it's something I'm heavily working on with my journal and my meditations every morning. So easy to assume stuff, because when you assume stuff, you're trying to put yourself back into that stage of comfort, of knowing everything. It is not in our position as human beings to know all the answers. It's simply not that. Again, going back to the Bible, one of the most powerful stages you can be within yourself is letting go and letting God. You do not need to cover the how or when. All you need to do is think of that energetic signature, align yourself with it, and essentially on a frequency basis, and just make sure that you're acting like how you want to act. And then the universe, God, will take care of the rest. It's not in your understanding to assume everything. How many times have you assumed something that it will be worse than what it is? You're expecting an argument, so you're going over all the questions that you're going to say and what you're going to find out, all for them to back down, or there not be an argument anyway, and they come to you and apologise. There's all these different types of nuances and situations that you'll find yourself in where it's never as bad as it you seem. And going back to the first book, if it's endurable, then endure it. Most people, most confrontations, they're just trying to get a reaction out of you, because their vibration, the fact that they can't keep the word to themselves and they're just shit with themselves, is nothing more than just a reflection of them. It has nothing to do with you whatsoever. So never assume and never take stuff personally. You have to learn to basically make sure that you never be attached to the physical realm. Everything starts with the mental. The mental is where stuff is created. It's where everything is designed. It's where everything is manufactured. It's where your actual life will come from. You cannot take stuff personally, because then you're attaching yourself when you should be detaching into the physical realm. Your happiness, your internal peace is determined off of how people want to react to you. So don't do that. And then the final one, is a special one, and I remember it was a really weird time in my life, and I don't know why this book just stuck with me, but this one book has been responsible for pretty much everything over the past year. So I've moved cities, I've got to standards that I never really thought it's normal now, but going back to when I was in my hometown, I would have never really thought possible, and we're going into even newer chapters. This book really just sort of it opened up the doors and it opened up my eyes. It's imagine if I'd been asleep for my entire life, this one woke me right the fuck up, and trust me, it was a big one. So without further ado, we have Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. Now this is quite I have friends, I have good connections that are quite deep into spirituality and esoteric wisdom, and I appreciate every single one of them. I like to see Joe Dispenza as a bit of a poster boy for the spiritual realm. If you know spirituality, you'll know Tony Robbins, and Joe Dispenza is definitely up there as well. However, his YouTube videos can be very much surface level stuff. This book, genuinely, it broke down everything for me. It taught me about the quantum field. It taught me about the true mechanisms of energy. It allowed me to understand myself more. This book, I remember when I was reading it, it was very much a day like today, and I was sat outside, and I don't think I was close to tears or anything, but it's the first time, would somber be the word? I don't know. But I'd finished the book and I just put it down, and honestly, I just looked up at the sky for 10 minutes straight. I've never been so speechless and profound when after reading a book. And the first thing I did 2 actions. I started keeping a journal, which is a habit that I have never ever broken since. I'm currently on my 3rd journal. I started reading this just under a year ago, And from there, I was journaling every single day. Joe Dispenza actually has a free 4-week guided meditation. So what that basically allowed me to do was quieten my mind. Whenever I go back to my hometown, whenever I sort of see people that don't necessarily have access to me, they always ask me, how do I operate at the levels that I do? And honestly, it just came from thinking less. This morning I went to the gym and I was sat in my car and I was like, I do not know how I've even got here. I don't remember waking up. I don't remember putting on my clothes or making a pre-workout. I was just in my car and I was like, I have no idea. So I've reduced the ability to think, and I honestly, there's just nothing that's there. But because I've got such a quiet mind now, when I do need to accumulate my thoughts and my energy and, you know, create in this mental plane, I'm able to create the right decisions. I know what needs to be done. My intuition literally tells me the test answers. I'm guiding and sort of like, I'm fathering myself, yet I'm in a relationship with myself, and I'm truly aligning myself with that divine version. And I'm just as long as I keep my mind quiet, then I'm good. And this book really sort of taught me the power of journaling and meditation. And meditation from a yogi standpoint just means to know yourself. And for the first time in forever, like literally ever, I feel like I have an understanding of who I am, where I'm going, what I want to be. There's a book that I've written there actually myself, which is basically who is Josh Clark, and that's just going into my character, the attributes that I want to have, my reputation, my aura, my energy, all that type of stuff. This book really transforms stuff. And to further that more, I want to tell you a story. So I obviously left my hometown, moved here to where I am now, and I had a really nice car. It was my first car, so I'll always be attached to it. I've still got the car key to the left. It was a black BMW 1 Series. Now, it was an '06 plate, so very ancient, but it was like my first car. And, you know, when you go from having to get the bus everywhere to, having to get a taxi everywhere and get on lifts and stuff like that, to then having your own car, it's like literally having a world at your fingertips. Like, it's crazy. So I absolutely adored that car, and I'm definitely going to buy another one soon, just to add to the collection, right? I actually crashed it. So I was in a situation where I how did it go now? So I was in a situation. It was a manual car, right? And I was a new driver, so I think I'd stalled it, and someone very lightly tapped into the back of my car. Not marked it or anything. It was just cosmetic. But I was trying to register that, and I was a little bit pissed off. Like, I didn't react stoically, which was the first thing I did when I journaled. And I was driving along the road really slow, just trying to process stuff. And then what happened was this other guy, he used the wrong lane, and then he basically came on the inside, and this was coming off of a roundabout, and then he brake checked me. So I legitimately went into the back of him. And that basically wrote off my car. It was safe to drive home and everything, but I wrote off that car and it was not drivable. So I'd gone from having a world at my fingertips to now having to find another gym, and I was basically put into an old vibration that I was at in Bradford, when on paper I was actually homeless, which is another story for an entirely different day, but we'll get to that. So I crashed this car, left with nothing, and really just sort of wondering what on earth I was going to do next. And in the midst of this, I was reading this book, so I was journaling, and the first thing I felt to do was go straight to my journal. So I crashed the car, told my missus what had happened. And the first thing I said was, look, I just need to go upstairs, I just need to journal. And I wrote inside my journal. I was really just sort of like reflecting on what had actually happened. Now, the first thing I always do is I always tell people I crashed the car. Even though on paper that guy brake checked me, I still drove into the back of him and it was my fault. When you blame something else, you give power to it. And I do not subscribe to the idea of giving power to anyone else but myself. So first thing I had to do was take accountability for it. Then what happened was I was journaling and I was adapting. So I was like, this has happened, I'm going to confront it. I didn't neglect anything. I didn't, act like it had never happened. That's not what spirituality is. That's not what being, of a higher vibration is. You have to learn to confront this stuff and bring it to the light. But as I started to focus on it and actually learn from it, what happened was all these blessings just started randomly coming out of nowhere, because luckily I'd had a little bit of savings because the insurance was due, and I had all this like outgoings going out at that time, but all these blessings just kept coming to me, and I was getting new clients out of the blue, like referrals that I wasn't even expecting, like honestly as if by magic. And I was journaling, I was being quiet with myself, I was training consistently, I was just doing the right things and just generally focusing on raising my consciousness, being more spiritual. And before you know it, what it did was it put me into a situation where I was able to buy a brand new car. So now I've got a nicer car, which is Mercedes. It's a good car, I liked it. But the thing what's special about that car is, like, that was the one thing that I literally, there was a trial, I was tested before going to the next level, and I passed that. And the blessing was that I literally got a new car. So it was like I'd used the mental plane to create and manifest something into the physical realm. And when I say manifestation, I don't mean this woo-woo girly shit. I mean true, powerful manifestation. I had literally changed my vibrational signature to align that of a new car. And I remember waking up like, these blessings will find you out of nowhere. You'll be genuinely so puzzled. But again, it's not for us to say. We just have to create that signature to begin with. And I remember checking an old Stripe count, and there was a good like over $1,000 in there. And that was obviously the missing piece that I needed to put myself into that final position. I just remember wondering and being so grateful that like it had actually happened. And it all felt natural, it all felt authentic. And whenever I sort of tell that story, I always attribute it to this book, because that was what was going on around this situation, and this book helped me break the habit of being myself, right? It literally helped me, because the old me would have just moaned and whinged, and like I'd have probably gone after the guy. We actually had a confrontation. He ended up shaking my hand afterwards. He backed down. I didn't back down, so like my confidence was there. I didn't like, I didn't roll over or anything. Like I acted like him. And like it was just a good way for me to rise in that situation. The old me just would not have done the stuff that I would have done. So basically what I had to do was break the habit of being myself, understand what was going on, to confront it. I wasn't neglecting it, and basically just align myself with a higher vibration. So be more calm, take responsibility, and just start to journal with it. So those are sort of like the books that have helped me a lot. There's definitely going to be more to go in there, but I feel like with this video at least, you've got a good insight into the stuff that has helped me the most.